For 3 decades, a single name struck absolute terror into the royal courts of Europe and completely paralyzed their massive naval fleets. That name was Khairuddin Pasha Barbarossa. If you look at this engraving, with its deeply weathered lines and striking turban, you are looking at the uncrowned king of the Mediterranean seas. But looking at this antique map, his story actually starts far away from the halls of power, right here on the obscure Greek island of Lesbos. Born in the 16th century, he was the son of a retired Ottoman soldier named Yaqub Aga. Yaqub had 4 sons who took entirely different paths in life. Arouj traveled as a merchant, Ilyas studied to become an imam, and Ishaq worked as a carpenter. The youngest, Khizr, the boy who would eventually become the legendary Barbarossa, spent his days covered in clay, helping his father make pottery. People who command massive empires rarely start out with that kind of ambition. It usually takes a violent disruption of their quiet, ordinary lives to force them onto the world stage. In the early 1500s, a militant group known as the Knights of St. John controlled the waters around Lesbos. They were a remnant of the Crusades, operating largely as state-sponsored pirates who terrorized the region. Those knights launched a brutal attack on the merchant ship captained by Arouj. During the chaos, his younger brother Ilyas was killed in the fighting. Arouj survived the battle, only to be dragged into a dark crusader cell. For 3 agonizing years, he endured immense cruelty and isolation as a prisoner of the knights. When he was finally released, the merchant who went into that cell was gone. He emerged with a fierce, singular goal: to scour the seas of the pirates who had murdered his brother. By pushing peaceful tradesmen to their absolute breaking point, the Knights of St. John inadvertently manufactured the very holy warriors who would eventually destroy them. To build their fleet and their strength, Arouj and Khizr turned their attention westward to Andalusia, in modern-day Spain. Following the fall of Granada, the Muslim population there faced a grim ultimatum from the Christian rulers: either abandon your faith or face execution. This animated map tracks the massive rescue operation they launched in response. The brothers risked their own lives to sail directly into hostile Spanish waters, ultimately transporting over 70,000 Muslim refugees across the sea to safety in North Africa. European monarchs looked at these coastal raids and branded the brothers as ruthless pirates, but to the tens of thousands of people they pulled from the jaws of death, they were angels of mercy. Over time, their operations outgrew their ships. In 1516, they led an assault on Spanish forces in North Africa, successfully capturing Algeria and establishing their own independent sovereign state. Common bandits do not risk the hangman's noose to rescue thousands of refugees, nor do they build functioning nations. The brothers were operating on deep ideological conviction, not a desire for plunder. That conviction was put to the ultimate test 2 years later. In 1518, during the siege of Tlemcen, Arouj and a small band of fighters found themselves completely surrounded by thousands of Spanish soldiers. Even with a clear avenue for escape, Arouj refused to abandon his position. He fought to his dying breath. Across Europe, royal courts celebrated, convinced the Barbarossa threat had finally been neutralized. Back in Algeria, Khizr picked up his older brother's blood-soaked turban. He claimed the name Barbarossa for himself, but he also recognized a cold, strategic reality. Willpower alone couldn't defeat the combined military might of a united Europe. So Khizr made a brilliant geopolitical maneuver. He offered his hard-won, independent territory of Algeria to the Ottoman Sultan Selim I. In exchange, he received the full backing of the empire and the honorable title of Khairuddin, meaning goodness of the faith. This diplomatic pivot integrated Khairuddin's irregular naval tactics directly into the Ottoman state's centralized logistics. It transformed a local resistance movement into a permanent maritime front that stalled Spanish expansion across the southern Mediterranean for generations. The European powers realized they were now facing an existential threat. The Pope declared a holy war, uniting Spain, Venice, Malta, and the Papal States into the Holy League, assembling the largest armada in history, commanded by the renowned Admiral Andrea Doria. This diagram of the 1538 Battle of Preveza illustrates the overwhelming mismatch. Doria commanded 300 massive, heavily armed European galleons, Barbarossa fielded just 122 lighter Ottoman vessels, but the environment intervened. The wind completely died. Doria's massive galleons, utterly reliant on sails, were suddenly dead in the water. Barbarossa immediately capitalized on the dead air. His lighter, oar-powered galleys darted through the water, easily outmaneuvering the static cannons of the massive European giants, delivering devastating point-blank cannon strikes instead. The result was a total rout. Andrea Doria fled under the cover of darkness, and the Holy League's armada was shattered. In the chaos of the crushing victory, Barbarossa did not lose a single ship. A massive advantage in iron and artillery means nothing if you can't move. True naval dominance belongs to the commander who masters the sea itself. As we look at this map of the region, the geopolitical aftermath of Preveza is clear. For the next 30 years, the Mediterranean effectively functioned as an Ottoman lake, securing the coastlines and enabling rapid territorial expansion across the land. 2 years later, in a desperate bid to neutralize him, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V offered Barbarossa a colossal bribe: unlimited wealth and total rulership over all of North Africa if he would switch sides. Barbarossa rejected the offer entirely. A mercenary would have taken the money and the crown, but his loyalty to his faith and empire was absolute. Undefeated on the water, he eventually chose his own exit. At the age of 67, he peacefully retired from military life and spent his final days writing his strategic memoirs, The Conquests of Khairuddin Pasha. The village potter who once worked with clay spent his final years refining the memoirs that would guide future generations of sailors. He transformed from a local merchant into an immortal symbol of strategic intellect, faith, and absolute conviction.